This is Duke University.
I'm Lauren Corey, Career Advisor for the Data Technology and Engineering Career Community at the Duke Career Center. And I'd like to introduce you to our student moderator, Irma Lopez Calderon. Irma is a first year and Duke Career Center student worker, interested in studying psychology and visual media studies. Irma is also involved in Mi Gente, the Central Latinx organization at Duke University, whose mission is to provide a sense of community among Latinxes at Duke, as well as to promote awareness and sponsor activities about Latinx cultural, political, educational, and social issues. Thank you so much, Irma, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Lauren, for the introduction, and welcome everyone to tonight's panel conversation. Before we begin, I want to invite the panelists to introduce themselves. So the first question of the night will be, tell us about yourself and what you do and what you studied at Duke. And we could start off with Melissa, if that's helpful.
Hey everyone, I'm Melissa. So I was class of 2017, studied computer science and economics. I also did the innovation entrepreneurship certificate at one point. I think they just started it at the time. What else should I share? Anything else?
What you do.
Oh, yeah. So I'm the co-founder and CTO of Bonfire. We're a startup working with creators to help them build communities around NFTs and social tokens. But yeah, started with my co-founder, Matt, who was also a Duke alumni, class 2017.
Really cool. Thank you, Melissa. We could have Robert next.
Hi, everyone. I am a 2009 grad school graduate from Duke. I was officially in the East Asian Studies program, but I did kind of an economics and anthropology course of study. My current role is I'm head of growth strategy for a company called Vivid Labs. We are also a startup. Vivid Labs is a NFT publishing platform for what we call multimedia updatable NFTs. I'll probably have the chance to explain what I mean by that. And my role, head of growth strategy, is kind of like a strategy role that leads into business development, partnerships, product, and marketing.
Thank you for that, Robert. And then lastly, we'll have Justin.
Nice to see everyone. My name is Justin Gilanyi. I'm a Duke 04 grad, studied art history and public policy. I've worked in advertising, marketing, PR. I've had a gallery. I live in Los Angeles and I've worked with different creators. I'm currently founded a company called Where Art Works, in addition to Visual Artists Group, but really looking at the creator economy and how blockchain and Web3 can be used to just promote those creators and build their careers. So I range from working with visual artists to different projects as well, and helping with brands and other entities in the space. So.
Thank you all for those introductions. Moving on to the next question. How did you guys stumble into the world of NFTs?
I think we sort of maybe all fell into it a little bit. I'll start. Basically, during the pandemic, we were all sort of homebound and I got onto Clubhouse, the audio app. Historically, like I said, I've worked in PR, marketing, branding with the creator economy. I got my master's at USC, where I went to the Iveen and Young School, which was Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iveen's program. It took faculty from the art school, the business school, and the engineering school. So we looked at design theory from the art faculty and UI, UX, business strategy there as well. And then also the learning about coding and different things. So just a wide swath of stuff. And especially my focus was on the creator economy. What happens when robots and automation take over? What can humans do? And I was in Clubhouse at the time, which is an audio app. Now Twitter Spaces is much more popular, but got involved with a thing called BitClout. It's called DeSo now, but looking at social tokenization, looking at how one's post and their creative output could basically be monetized through tokens in the blockchain. And then I got into Tezos, which is another blockchain, basically, and started collecting art because historically I've collected art. Then I got into Ethereum, and then another blockchain called Solana. We'll go into some of those things later, I'm sure, but sort of just started meeting people through the audio apps, through Twitter, was really a lot in the trenches and just have been building. There's been different flows within the crypto markets. These are all, Bitcoin, Ethereum, all different types of cryptocurrencies. And you tend to see a lot of stuff happening during the bull market, we call it, when things are going really well. And then right now we're in like sort of a bear market where people are building. So we've had our ups and downs over the last 2 years, but for me, I just sort of fell into it vis-a-vis connecting with people on audio apps and then evolving into things like Twitter and other stuff like that. So.
Justin, can I just ask, what is a blockchain?
Oh, am I the right person to answer this question? It has a block and it has a chain. No, I will say that maybe, I don't know if maybe Melissa or Robert would like to answer that question, or I can give it a try. I can add on to it as well.
I think just like from like a high level, it's just essentially an immutable ledger that is decentralized. So like how companies have databases, those are all like private to those companies. No one else can access them. The blockchain is just like a public database that is secured through, I mean, depends what chain you're on, but it could be secure. It's all secured through cryptography. And yeah, anyone can access it. Anyone could read from it. And anyone can publish blocks to it.
Melissa, do you want to kind of explain how you got into NFTs?
Yeah, so I got into crypto kind of around like 2015, 2016, and I actually took Cam Harvey's class at the business school, even though I wasn't in the business school. It was just kind of random that I took it. And then that was like my first intro to crypto. And at the time, like NFTs weren't really a thing at all. But I was just like really excited about crypto technology in general, just like how it was going to change the way we think about payments and just like having like a global payment system that was decentralized and didn't require minimum. I was like, this is pretty insane. And then so I basically joined Coinbase after graduation as a software engineer. And yeah, I mean, I feel like there was kind of like that crypto kitties phase. I didn't really like get into it then. I was like, oh, these are cute, but like, what are they for? And then I left Coinbase back in 2020 to start a company with my co-founder. And that's kind of when around that time, like NFTs and social tokens are starting to take off. And we were like really interested in creators and helping them like build their own business and brands and helping them monetize. Because we saw that there was like a lot of issues with the way like the traditional like Web2 social aggregator companies are working, where they were basically extracting all of the value that creators were creating. And so it was pretty clear to us like the future of like how content would be created on the internet, would be owned and would be traded, would be like, it would all be through NFTs. So we were just like, okay, like this makes a ton of sense. Like, let's start building for creators who want to use this technology. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I got into it. I'm a big Crypto Coven fan. I have Alpha Girl. But kind of recently been really getting into like music NFTs. A lot of our customers are musicians. And so I think it's all really interesting.
So for myself, I had a fairly traditional background in media and entertainment. For about 12 years, I worked for the Hollywood studios. I worked for Sony Pictures. I worked for 20th Century Fox and Disney. But my roles were always kind of at this, I was more on the business side, and my roles were always kind of at this intersection of like new content and technology, or the types of new content you could create with technology. So in the studios, I did a lot of work with, VR, AR, some 5G, and blockchain was one of the things that I was working on. And so I was in the studios for a bit, and then I had this opportunity to jump into more of an entrepreneurship role to start with this startup. I joined a CTO to do it, and I was in the blockchain space for since about 2015. We were working on a technology that we called a decentralized media processing platform, which is going to sound super boring. But the idea was that essentially we would bring together a network of computers. And so think of it like Airbnb, where you might have your computer that sits on your desk at night and you're not using that computer, but you could hook it into our network and we could essentially rent out your compute power while you weren't using your computer. And this is what we built on top. We used the blockchain to essentially kind of mediate these relationships. And so we started building applications on top of this. And when we saw what was happening with NFTs around the time of the Beeple sales, when we really started getting involved, we had this idea that, if people think JPEGs are cool, where do they get a load of video? And so we really began to build this platform that's really focused on video NFTs. And then ultimately we've evolved that to what we call the multimedia NFT.
Thank you all for sharing. I'm really excited to get more into like multimedia with NFTs contests, also with like music and NFTs. The next question though is, what is one of the biggest misconceptions about NFTs?
I can start that one. So in my mind, the biggest misconception is that NFTs are just JPEGs, kind of NFTs came onto the scene under this guise of being a JPEG and being really applicable to digital art. It was a really kind of perfect analogy to help people begin to wrap their minds around NFTs. But NFTs can ultimately be much more than that. The way that I kind of think about it is that I think a lot about how really the NFT is going to be the next media format. So similar to as we've gone from DVD to Blu-ray to streaming, or CD to streaming, that the NFT will be that next media format. So what we spend a lot of time doing is thinking about all types of content experiences, whether it's music, like Melissa mentioned, or even like film and television, which is in my background, of course, visual art. But really any piece of content can be expressed as an NFT. And I think that that's a big misconception.
I'd piggyback on that too, just saying the NFT is not the art necessarily. It's a lot of times the vehicle for there to be transactions for the art or the JPEG to be transferred. Also too, that it's also grouped with cryptocurrency so strongly. I think if we decouple, it sort of is more about the technology. I'd like to see there more emphasis on the technology, or the prospect or the benefit of the technology, rather than it just being coupled with cryptocurrency, like the price of Bitcoin or the price of Ethereum. There's sort of a lot of negative things that go on with that, as crypto is its own, it's part of it, but it's also it's separate too. Melissa, maybe you have some thoughts about misconceptions.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with what you all said. I think to me, the NFTs solve like a fundamental problem of the internet that, like, when it first came about, like probably the biggest issues were like, you don't have ownership and you can't pay people. And all of these companies have build huge businesses off the fact that there aren't native payments on the internet and that you can't own anything. And so I think NFTs kind of solve that latter thing, where now you can prove provenance, that you own this thing, you can bring this asset across multiple websites or wherever you want, wherever you go. And it's not like all tied to a siloed, you know, Instagram or YouTube or wherever. And so I think that's really powerful. And it also not just like content, it could be like your social graph, like that stuff right now only lives in like Facebook or wherever, but you could bring that to any platform that you go to. So I think there's a lot of really interesting things around NFTs that people like, we haven't like really even explored yet. Like right now it is like very much content focused, but in the future it could be like owning anything.
I think it's always really interesting thinking about the possibilities, I guess, that I could go to in the future. So that is really cool. When you guys think about your work, what are some things that really excite you guys, or also you guys feel challenged by? I think it'll be interesting to get into that.
The challenging part right now is just pure education. I come from a business development background where you could used to, you could go to a meeting and you just kind of, you pitch your company or whatnot. The challenging part right now is that, particularly to the extent that we're trying to interact with like fairly large name brands or production companies, or even, even speaking to creators sometimes, there's a whole process of education that has to happen around, what is an NFT. And then unfortunately, recently, we also have to talk about like, what is FTX? And we have to handle that part of it too. So that's the biggest challenge. I think for me at least, the most exciting thing is I do want to just maybe riff a little bit on what Melissa was saying in terms of ownership. It might sound silly to say that like we're now just truly entering the digital world. We've had a digital world for, I don't know, 20 years, but if you think about this, we really haven't. And it really focuses on this idea of ownership. Like this might be a little too far back, but if when I owned a DVD, I could watch the movie, and then when I got tired of it, maybe I would sell it or I would trade it because I owned it as a physical object. And ownership is a very kind of basic thing that we understand. If we own it, we can do what we want with it. But that has not been the case in the digital world. That has not been the case since we moved to digital. Whether you were on, whether you were on iTunes or even Instagram. Let's take iTunes first. You might buy a piece of content on iTunes, but you can't resell it, you can't trade it, you can't even take it outside of iTunes. On Instagram, you are contributing content to Instagram, but you don't own those photos. In fact, you are giving ownership up of those photos. And so only by enabling ownership do we, in my opinion, truly move into a digital world. And I think that that's very exciting.
Plus one, all of that. I guess I think the most challenging thing right now, Robert did kind of touch on this, is like we're trying to work with creators, and all their fans right now are still they don't really know anything about Web3, and like trying to onboard them into like a creator's like, ecosystem of NFTs or whatever they want to do in crypto. Like that's probably the most challenging, because it's like, as a user, like I don't really care about NFTs. Like I care about like the artist, the person that I'm following, and like being a patron of that person. So I think a lot of what's been built in like the past year, I feel like a lot of it has been like focused on the technology piece instead of focusing like on the user. So I feel like for us, like we want to definitely like go back to like what pain points are we solving for creators? Like how do we like create something that is compelling for fans and not try and sell them on like, here's the cool technology, be like, this is a cool experience. So I think that's the biggest challenge. And then I mean, it's exciting. Like things change all the time. Like we're based, like everyone here is kind of like pioneering a whole new industry, and like how it turns out, like no one really knows. So it's pretty cool.
I would also echo that too. I think the most challenging and exciting is actually the same thing, that there's so much all the time and it happens so quickly. There's so much opportunity. There's so much potential. I mean, we'll talk about life work balance later, but 24/7, like some industries, they like, they have weekends and the stock market stops and begins. And in this case, things are just going. There are new use cases. There's new potential. What seems like a day is like a week. What's a week is a month. Like, in crypto Web3 time, you could launch something, and like, for example, 2 weeks ago, OpenSea came to me and an artist I work with named Gabe Weiss, who I have behind me, and they're like, oh, we're going to do a drop and we're going to do an open mint. And so within a week, basically the artwork was made, the campaign was created, and in 2 days we sold 7,777. We minted 7,770 NFTs. And that also included Twitter Spaces and like marketing. And again, all the work he did up to that point comes to be, but the technology in that just affords for it to happen quickly. And the other point I want to make too is, like, if we go, like, let's just in very basic terms look at Web 1, Web 2, Web 3. Web 1 is sort of like the advent of the internet, where you have websites like you would have like CNN, or you had the news or whatever, where it is from a producer, it's giving to you, the consumer. So it's a one-way street. Then all of a sudden we have our Web 2, which is more of these social platforms came to be in the early 2000s, Facebook, Twitter, etc., where they're giving you information, the producer, but you as the consumer are giving feedback. So likes, comments, that. Now, Web 3 we have here with this unique situation of what Robert and Melissa have talked about, ownership and authorship, is that you, as someone that is bought into from that producer, the producer gives you the NFT or the creative work, you as the owner now can participate and produce too with them and build. So it's much more dynamic, and this probably deserves a whole session at some point, thinking about the creator economy and its effects on Web 3. But it's just revolutionary in the sense where you're building, there's an idea that's given by the original creator or producer, and you as a community member can help shape and add value and grow that project as well. So we haven't even touched the top or the tip of the iceberg at all, but it's a really, just in a very fundamentally basic way, this is very revolutionary. And to Robert and Melissa's point, we've been in the digital age, but not like this, of ownership and the creator economy. So
Thank you guys for sharing your excitements and your challenges. Robert, I'm sorry, but to go back to your point on education, what does FTX stand for, just for a basis?
So FTX was what's called a decentralized exchange. It was the company that burst into a ball of flames in fourth quarter last year with Sam Bankman-Fried and the fraud. And it's one of these occasions where we're all kind of working in these same ecosystems, and this is, this incident is the incident that brought a tremendous spotlight to the industry, and it's all wrapped in fraud, and it's one of the as with any new technology, and particularly at the frontier of new technologies, there's legions of stories of how people misuse that technology, and this is one of the best ever.
Yeah, I think whether like this industry is getting a lot of attention. So I think a lot of students like would ask, what career can I have with NFTs? And how would you guys answer that?
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I need to just, I think I just played back in my head. I need to describe FTX as a centralized exchange, not a decentralized exchange. So please correct the record if I said the wrong thing there. I'm sorry, Irma, can you repeat the question?
Yeah. So a lot of students would ask, like what career can they have with NFTs? So I guess like then like how would you answer that?
I mean, in my opinion, the question is what kind of career can they have, period. Because I personally believe that NFTs will be a part of, will be a technology that underlies many careers. Certainly content creators, whether you're on the creative side or the business side, we are working with a use case where a law firm is thinking about using NFTs to underlie what they do. We're working with a company in the medical field that wants to essentially create NFTs for everyone's medical records, so that you actually own your medical records and you can choose which of your data is used and what's not used, and so that you have control of that. It's I think similar to what what we're all excited about for 14 days in terms of AI. Like it's just one of those technologies that feels like it's going to move across any potential career.
Yeah, and I would say too, like some of the careers haven't even been forged yet. We don't even know yet. I would say follow your passion and let that dictate. And to Robert's point, the technology will be there. There's a lot of gaming companies. So as I talked about, I'm really interested in what happens when those accounting jobs or the jobs are taken away by AI or by automation and robotics. So we may be gaming, we may be educating people in different ways. There are a lot of gaming companies that are using NFTs. For example, when you buy your Fortnite, different apparel or different elements in there, the more you game and the more you game and beat things, you're going to get rewarded in different ways. We can think of it also like loyalty programs. Starbucks recently has just released the thing where the loyalty program where you have your NFT and there can be things built on that. You may have a shirt and they have like an NFC chip. NFC is escaping me right now with we have a lot of acronyms in the NFT space. We just love them. We just say them, they come out. But needless to say, the ability that if you wear your shirt in public around like a billboard, you may get a free coffee. So there's different ways we can start thinking about. In many ways, the phone keeps us, connected, but why not get rewarded too? There's debates about privacy. There's debates about these things. If we have foregone our privacy for the convenience of technology, then we should maybe get compensated for what we do and what our output or added value is. So I think there's a wide variety from also thinking, I think the DMV in California is looking about title or, for cars as well, or for houses. There's so many marriage license. I think there's so many future case scenarios. And then lastly, before Melissa goes to one of the great examples, and this is before I got in the space, I was in Estonia. And Estonia has this thing called the X Road. And they're a very new nation with a very limited amount of people, but their medical records, their whole thought is data on a chain. It's not exactly what we're looking at with this type of blockchain that a lot of us are dealing with, but they have this system that then if you put in your PIN, it brings all of your data together. So we have our license, for example. It's sort of absurd that our address of where we live is on our license that we lose, whereas they just have their ID card. They're able to put things in and then all their current information comes together. So as you guys are listening to this later, definitely check out the X Road in Estonia. But go ahead, Melissa, careers you think might be potential.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add. I feel like it's really, you could be anything where like crypto companies or NFT companies are just normal companies. They need legal, they need marketing, they need engineers. Like, I think, nothing really much to add. Like it's crypto in some degree, I think it's going to be in any industry, kind of like AI, like every single company, there's going to be some AI elements to it. And I think the same is true for crypto.
Thank you all for those examples, from medicine to video games. That is really cool. Sometimes, I guess, like, what advice, or like if there was one piece of advice you guys would give to students who are watching this panel, to walk away with, in terms of like, what's one thing that they could do in order to get into this field, whether that's like a specific skill to develop, or, you know, like a course to take. I know you guys all have come from like different experiences, but, you know, if there's one thing that they should focus on, what would that be?
I would suggest just one of the things I think is being, so I don't know even how to frame it, but just solution based, trying to always be observant and look at ways in which I can add value and I can figure out solutions. So I think in many ways, that's sort of what I got from my master's too, of having different disciplines, just trying to find solutions and being open to that. I think those are skills that are important.
I feel like mine,
Yeah,
I feel like mine's obvious, where it's like technical, like, not that you have to be a software engineer, but I do think like having, like, learning SQL, like reading the Bitcoin white paper, like I feel like a lot of those things, like it kind of helps you understand like why are people so excited about the technology, and also like, you know, if you want to start a company, like, or be like, you can kind of get going really quickly if you had like some degree of have some technical knowledge. But I mean, not everyone wants to be a software engineer, and I know that. So
one thing that I think has been really important for me, I'm not an engineer. I'm not an engineer by training, and I've not been forced to be an engineer by getting into the NFT space. What has served me well is just kind of a willingness to be really curious about it. And, you know, because this is such a nascent space, there's not really any prescribed path from which to learn about it. But at the same time, there's like hundreds of avenues from which to learn, whether you're spending time on like the, you know, kind of Twitter specific spaces that address NFTs and crypto, or you're spending time in Discord channels. There's a ton of like, you know, crypto specific publications and online publications that are super helpful. And to be honest with you, and there's a ton of podcasts that are super helpful as well. I'll just throw out one that was really helpful in kind of my understanding of the space, which is called Bankless, which is a really fantastic podcast. But really the other part of this is like, whether you do it on Discord or whatnot, you just need to go hang out in the spaces where people are doing these things. On Twitter, you can find a Twitter space every night where people are just hanging out talking about this stuff. And so this is all, having that curiosity, I think, is extremely important. What's really interesting about this space is that it's a great mix between like people trying to do very practical things, but it's also a very intellectual space right now, because there's some very big ideas behind decentralization and what it means. And so it's a fascinating space just to kind of lose yourself in. And I think a willingness to do that is really important.
I'd like to caveat that too, is we say this thing in this space called DYOR, like Dior, but with a Y, but it's do your own research. Make sure that not only there's not one way. And I have found great confidence in having a lot of people around me that I trust, and I've verified that this is an uncharted territory. And to Melissa's point, we are pioneers. And I would really advise, as you're getting your MetaMask, you're onboarding, and you're watching YouTube videos and the Discord and the Twitter, look at various sources and then come to your own conclusion. Have your group around you that you're doing it together. There's a lot of frauds. There's a lot of scams. We've gone through this. I will speak for myself, but the panel maybe too, is that we are a resource as well. This is, like I said, uncharted territory. And, we're discovering Antarctica, we're discovering the moon. It's sort of together, we can really do really great things. Try not to do it alone. And also just verify.
Thank you guys for sharing those skills. It ranges from different experiences and backgrounds, but I think it really shows doing like those little things could really help. And also thank you for the podcast recommendation, Robert. We're going to move into our quick fire questions. These are gonna be really quick answers for you guys. Just it'll be really quick, but we could go from the order from Justin, Melissa to Robert, just so it's easier for you guys. So starting off, yes or no, have you ever questioned your career path?
Oh, yes, but I've wow, that's so weird. Oh, okay. Yes, I have, but I'm actually confident in what I've done. Go ahead, Melissa. Sorry.
No, I know that's a hard question. I don't think so. No.
100%, 100%.
Through a 1 through 5 scale, 1 being strongly disagree and 5 being strongly agree, your role offers a work-life balance.
I've made it into that. It wasn't so much the beginning, but you need to create your own weekends and your own time frame and give yourself space. I'm a bit if you've ever, I'm a bit connected to Twitter Spaces all the time, but yeah, there can be that. Melissa?
You just always have it in your ear.
I have it in my ear right now, actually. Nah.
I mean, I feel like you guys know you're starting company, you're doing something that no one's ever done before. There's a lot of excitement, and I don't know. So not a whole lot of work-life balance, but enough. A 4 maybe. I'm in Tahoe right now, so that's pretty nice.
I've worked for large corporate, and now I'm in startup. These days it feels a little bit more like strongly disagree. There's not too much work-life balance, but again, it's because the space is just growing so quickly, and there's just so much to learn. But so it's rewarding, but not a lot of balance sometimes.
Yeah, I feel like it's more like it's so many interesting things happening and you're learning a lot. So it's not like you don't want to learn or you don't want to do the things. So
Valid. I think that actually shows that you care about it. So 1 word, fill in the blank. So blank is a skill that you use almost every day.
I would say ChatGPT. No, I'm just joking. I have outsourced a lot of things to ChatGPT. I may not be popular right now, but needless to say, the tool can be very helpful. But I think time management is very important. I think setting up boundaries and parameters, setting up schedules, regardless of NFTs or not, I would recommend everyone, regardless of your career, set up like you're drinking water every day, no matter how old you are throughout your life. I think setting up your schedule, no matter what work you do, is really important, because whether you're 22 or 65, if you have these touch points where movement, water, whatever that is for you, I think that's really important. So, Melissa?
I'm still thinking of mine.
Yours is ChatGPT too, isn't it? You should have plugged it in.
I know, I was like in the corner, like, oh, plug in this question. Yeah, I don't know if this is a skill, but I feel like just one of the culture, like, everyone has like their like little culture tenets, whatever, that I really liked at Coinbase that I brought in my own company was like just like positive energy, like having like people can feel that, and it also like comes across, especially in crypto. It's very helpful because a lot of things, like we're in a bear market right now, there's not really any way around that, but just like having that, kind of like Justin was saying, like solutions oriented mindset, being positive and like trying to figure out ways to make things work. So
I think for me, it's this idea of like storytelling is extremely important. Learning how to tell a story and create a narrative around either yourself personally or what you do, or what this tech is or why it's important, is extremely important. And I think when I say storytelling, it doesn't need to be like as creative as that might sound, but like literally, can you set up a premise? Can you support that premise, and can you make a conclusion based off of that? Just being able to building the skill set to be able to tell narrative is extremely important.
Moving a little bit away from work and then bringing it back to Duke, favorite place on campus?
Mine, hands down, is the Nasher. I think it's a really great center of creativity. The cafe. I worked there actually as an assistant to curators when I was there, when it actually was on East Campus. So that was a long time ago. But yeah, I think it's a really nice epicenter, and I love how it architecturally spikes out. So
they have the best food at the Nasher. I think mine was probably the Gardens. Because I used to live on Central back when Central Campus was still around, and I would just like walk through the Gardens to class, and that was just like really nice.
I'm sorry. I mean, mine, I went to undergrad at a very small liberal arts school. I came to Duke to get like a big college experience. I was in grad school as well, so maybe that's different than undergrad, but mine was Cameron. And I apologize for that, but I had, that big school experience for me was most embodied by the times I had there.
And I would just make a note. I mean, community at Duke, meaning Cameron, the Garden, the Nasher, that's very much the ethos of Web3. How can a community, a culture be built? And that's what we deal with every day. We can't do it alone. So.
And then last quick fire question, yes or no, do you need to have a particular major to work in blockchain, entertainment, etc.?
I don't think anyone cares about your major after you graduate. Maybe your first job, and then that's literally no one cares after that.
I would just recommend learn. I mean, if you're a freshman now, I know some of you are now, do things where you're learning. I like at Duke, I did art history and public policy. I know Irma, you're thinking about maybe psychology and something else, and art studies too. Find those things, because that's where the magic happens, and learn from different faculty like that. I think that's really important. It's more about also your peers as well. I learned to this day, I mean, I'm so excited to connect. I've connected with Robert, but also Melissa. I honestly feel like the three of us are probably have an NFT project that'll be launched in 2 weeks. You know what I mean? It's really magical. So.
That's really exciting to hear.
Yeah, I'll just
Sorry,
say,
Robert.
No problem. I'll just say one thing. Across my work life, the people that I've met, their majors have never mattered. And again, I'm not in technical or science, but a very clear difference between people who succeed and don't is you have to learn how to work. And it's makes sound simple, particularly for the types of students that Duke gets, but it's amazing to me the number of people I've worked with or come across that don't really understand how to work.
And I guess that really emphasizes the important skills that you have to have rather than a name or something. But thank you all.
I feel like it's, oh, sorry.
No, Melissa.
I was going to say, just add on to that, is like, I feel like it's more about like how you learn, like being able to learn quickly is like such a skill, like in engineering and specifically in crypto, like things are changing all the time, where I feel like if you can just kind of like dive in head first and like get yourself up to speed, like that's a skill that not everyone has, and it definitely sets you apart.
And I would also piggyback on that, fail fast as well. Just get it out, prototype, you can modify it, you can, adjust it accordingly. But I think, yeah, to Melissa's point, I think, yeah, get it out.
Thank you all. These are really great responses. And honestly, I think it has helped me learn a lot more, but I'm hoping the audience as well. We want to open up the floor to audience questions. If anybody has any questions that they would like to ask our panelists tonight.
I had a quick question. So firstly, thanks so much for all your answers. I think it was really very insightful to hear from all of you. I just sort of wanted to go back to what you were saying about just the journey that content mediums have had in terms of how we went from DVDs to streaming services and NFTs as the future. I was curious to hear about that, and just what we were talking about, how the technology age, so to speak, has been around for 20 years or so, but really the ability to own and trade, for example, DVDs, that hasn't really translated, right? And when I think about that, I feel like a big advent of going to these streaming services, for example, and I'm of course restricting myself to content here, but because I feel like that's a major application of NFTs, and of course there are others as well, but just for the sake of this example, I feel like streaming services have really allowed us, have made content way more accessible by bringing the cost of it down significantly, right? And in terms of how NFTs will shape up the future, I'm curious to hear about their economics in terms of whether they will only be targeted towards people who do see the value in paying extra for having that sense of ownership of that commodity or the content and actually owning it and being able to trade it, or will it somehow extend to the general population that maybe does not value ownership as much and just want to consume content and value maybe are more cost sensitive, maybe in that sense, if that makes sense.
So maybe some of what I will say here will kind of dip into a little bit of science fiction, or certainly future thinking. Every company today has a website, and we don't sit around talking about HTTPS technology and methodology. And I think the same will be true for NFTs as well, that the word NFT will eventually disappear. And it's kind of our opinion that every time we're talking about a piece of digital content or media or anything that's digital, that there should be and hopefully will be an NFT that underlies that. Now, I don't think that means we're just going to ignore what's happened over kind of the streaming era, or even to be more specific, the subscription streaming era. I think economics-wise, there's a place for both. One thing that is becoming kind of clear, though, is that the accessibility that the subscription streaming era has brought has also brought a lot of disruption in terms of what the economics means for the creators. Spotify is a fantastic service, but it's horrible for creators. Even Netflix, which is obviously a fantastic service, is not great for artists. And we're beginning to see as well that the subscription streaming economics is not great for Netflix either. We're just kind of beginning to see some examples of that. And so I do think that from an economic standpoint, there is room for the concept of ownership to come back into the picture here. And what's also great about ownership is that the economics work out so that you don't have to, when you have an ownership model that's underlying your economics, you don't have to create a piece of content that needs to be seen by millions and millions of people in order for the economics to work out. You can make a piece of content that maybe 100,000 people need to see versus 1 million, or maybe 1,000 people need to see versus 100,000. And when that's true, that also means that you can create content that's more towards that niche, and theoretically more true to your kind of general artistic point of view. So I think there will be there will be places for both. One's not going to just completely take over the other. But what's so great about the concept of NFTs and the blockchain is that it essentially recovers or brings back that idea of ownership within digital content and media.
Yeah, I'm excited by this actual question because it reminds me of like the art market and supply and demand. I did take an economics and art market class when I was at Duke, and it's interesting to think about. To Robert's point, it's not about mass appeal as much as like niche as well. When I was at the ad agency too, we were looking at fragmentation of screens, of like how you're able to communicate to various people on different screens. Now you're finding like, I think you could look at like the church, how it has functioned, or like Masonic lodges or clubs. Historically, humans like to gather in groups. So you're going to see two value paid based on what types of groups or communities people want to be a part of. And then that content is then distributed to them accordingly. So I think there's so much, there to think about, but I think Robert's, like you said, it doesn't need to be 1 million people. It could just be 1,000 people. It could be 500 people. I think that economics there is going to change accordingly. So.
Yeah, I feel like that was really well said from you all. I feel like another perspective is like NFTs don't actually have to cost anything. They could be free. And it could just be that you're a fan of a creator and you go to their concert and when the ticket is an NFT, or you go and engage with them in some way, like contribute to a campaign they're doing, you earn tokens or an NFT as a result of that. And then that becomes like a on-chain like rewards program where you can see like these people are my greatest fans. They've been to like 100 of my shows. They've bought all my albums. So I think that's like another way to think about it, where it's doesn't necessarily need to cost anything, but it is valuable to a creator to know like who are my 100 top fans. So I think they're going to be used in many different ways. Like I think there's kind of like the blue chip NFT where it's like this is the one of one, and then I think there's going to be like millions and billions of NFTs that just kind of follow you around the internet and you might not even know.
Well, and to Melissa's point too, like a lot of that marketing budget could be actually going to the person that has the NFT as well. So instead of you paying for content, you're getting rewarded, based on your participation. There's some things now that they're taking Twitter API and they're saying if you tweet, relike, you put this in your Twitter bio, you're going to be able, they can look at that and then basically say, okay, now you can mint something or you can have something on chain. So the way we think about things is completely being shaken up. So that consumer producer role is very different.
Thank you all for your responses, and thank you for the question. Do we have any more student questions? And if that's it for student questions, we want to thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. We appreciate your time. We also want to be respectful of your time, but thank you so much for engaging in this panel with me. And yeah, I learned a lot, but I was really excited for this, but thank you guys so much. And I'm going to pass it back to Lauren to end it out.
Awesome. Thank you, Irma. And I want to echo your comment on just thanking the alumni here for being a part of this session today and just sharing your advice and experience.